I'm in a book slump, so I read 2 books this month. And since I didn't want to just do a video of just talking about the 2 books I read this month, I thought that we would just put it all together into telling you guys my May wrap up and my June TBR. First of all, I am going to give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek into the TBR segment for this month, and that is to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Book of the Month, because they have some of my most anticipated reads sitting inside of this box. But first, let me tell you guys about Book of the Month. Book of the Month's mission is to help readers discover new books that they love and to promote the work of new and emerging authors. Their team vets through hundreds of books each month and then gives everybody their curated choice list of a selection each month. That way it takes all of the guessing and the hard work out of it, and basically you literally just get a list and you get to pick from the list of what books you want to choose for that month. Book of the Month focuses on new and emerging authors, which I can say from experience, especially one of my selections this month, that Book of the Month has helped me find so many new authors that I absolutely love, and has helped me step into other genres that I wouldn't have read before if not for their service. Plus, Book of the Month offers the best price for new and released hardcover fiction. Book of the Month also now offers audiobooks, so with your credit each month you can choose whether you would like the hardcover physical copy or you would like the audiobook version. You guys can get your first book for just $9.99 this month, which is literally a new release hardcover fiction book for just $9.99 with the code BREEZE. If you guys are interested, you guys can visit the link down in my description. Let me show you guys my selections for this month. I'm so excited about both of these. I have been actually waiting on both of these. First of all, we have Margot's Got Money Troubles. This is said to be a comedic, heartwarming story, one of my most anticipated releases of 2024, The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. I am so excited, you guys, to be able to have this in my hands right now. I literally want to read it right now. I actually found Catherine Center like a year or 2 ago through Book of the Month, so I'm very excited to pick up yet another book from her. Thank you so much again to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget, guys, use the code BREEZE to get your first book for just $9.99, and let's get into what I read in May. In May, I read 2 books, one of those being a new release and the other one being a reread because it was my book club's book pick of the month. Can you guys take a wild guess as to why we have 2 books? Also, want to say there's nothing wrong with reading 2 books a month. We're just saying that we know that this is out of character for me. I am in a book slump. Yep, in a book slump. I feared for this moment. I actually got into a book slump around this time last year, so I'm not loving that, but we're going to move on and just hope that June will be a great reading month for me and all of us. I'm putting that out there that it will be. The good thing about this month and the 2 books that I did read were they were 2 books that I really enjoyed. Obviously, Beach Read was a reread. We already know that this is a 5 stars. We also had This Summer Will Be Different. Both of these are romances. I actually ended up rating this one a 4 stars, and this was the first book that I actually finished this month. I had picked up a few books throughout the month, but I had never even finished them. I think I would get like maybe over 100 or 200 pages in, and then I would just put them down because I wasn't loving them. But this was the first book that I actually started it and sat down and finished it in one sitting. I was really surprised because with Carly Fortune, I feel like she is a very big hit or miss author with me. Every Summer After, I kind of was very indifferent about. I didn't really care, didn't really love it. Meet Me at the Lake, I didn't really like. But this one, like I said, I ended up giving a 4 stars. I really liked this one. I liked the atmosphere. I really liked the guy in it. There is a strong friendship aspect as well, and I liked how realistic it felt, like within a friendship of stuff that they were facing, and I feel like it depicted friendship as especially as you get older in a realistic way. It kind of gave me Happy Place vibes, and I will say that sometimes with Carly Fortune, it does feel like a little bit of her books always take inspiration from like other really popular romance books. I don't know if it's just that it feels like everything's a little bit the same nowadays. It feels like she takes inspiration from other stories. Nevertheless, I really like this one. This one has a back and forth timeline. Basically, you're following Lucy in the past, and she has this best friend who is her roommate, and they decide to visit the best friend's hometown. And it's this kind of like coastal town, and she goes there and she's waiting for her friend to show up, and she ends up meeting this guy. They share a moment and a night together, and then she realizes that this is her best friend's little brother. And by the way, we're saying little brother, he's like a year younger than them. It goes on to the now perspective. It's years later. They have to go back to the house this summer, and you were following just kind of like the history, the friendship, etc., etc. It was just a really good book. It had really great vibes, and I enjoyed it all around. So 4 stars. It feels yearly at this point, time to reread Beach Read, and so I used my UK cover, and I completely annotated and tabbed this one, and I just had a great time. I almost fell even more in love with it this time around, and this is my third time reading Beach Read, and last time I reread it I was like, yeah, obviously this like solidifies for me why I love it so much. But something about me reading it again, I don't know if it's just like the older that I'm getting and different life circumstances that you're going through that just makes it hit harder. It's always been a 5 stars, and this just though like made me fall in love with it more, and it may be that I'm starting to realize things that I didn't pay attention to as much, like the writing, and I've always paid attention to their banter, but just how witty and layered it is. Like even they'll mention something like for a split second and then it comes back up later in the book. The emotions that you also get from the different subplots within the characters, that's going on with January, that's going on with Gus, how they support each other in these hard times, and how they kind of recognize their past and go along with life with each other, and the way that they interact and the way that their relationship is built up. I just really loved again this time around, and it just made me love it even more. Also, just the very end, like the epilogue of this book is unmatched, and I always forget, and then I read the epilogue and I'm like, I just love it so much. It is amazing. It's the best epilogue that I've ever read. This will forever be a 5 star. Like I don't think there would ever be a day that I would pick this up and go, you know what, I don't know why I ever rated this a 5 star. That day will just never happen. Those are the books that I read in May. I will tell you guys, I have a few really exciting videos planned reading vlog wise this month that I have been planning for about a month and a half now. I'm very excited for them. The concepts are something that are very intriguing to me. An overall theme for this month is to get out of my comfort zone with reading, because I feel like when I first got back like heavily into reading, like my senior year of high school, I would pick up anything. If I saw anybody raving about a book, I was picking it up. I feel like my reading was just a lot more like all over, just different genres and everything that I was reading, and I want to get back to that. I feel like I've put myself inside of a comfort zone of like romance and fantasy and maybe some literary fiction and thrillers. Like sometimes I want to step outside of it, so I feel like you're going to see that within all of these books. And I will say this is a very ambitious TBR, but I also want to say that literally the only thing that I plan on doing this month is filming these videos, because I just really am like, when I look at these books, I feel like it's a very excited, giddy feeling, so I'm excited to film them. First of all, I want to talk about the books that I have just on my personal like mood reading radar for the month. I actually am planning on doing like a getting out of a book slump reading vlog. I've been filming it. I think it's going to go on for like the first few days of June, seeing if I can break out of it, because I kind of feel like I'm out of it, but I want to test it by reading a few books. I feel like even if you read one book and you're like, oh, it's good, it's like you have to test multiple books to see if like you're back in the groove, you know? First of all, I'm serious, guys. The rom-commers, this is one of my most anticipated reads of 2024. I'm very excited to read this one. Then next up, I have Powerful. This is the novella in the Powerless series by Lauren Roberts, and I've seen a lot of people, this is like super mini. Compare it to a book, like this is like a smaller book too, but it's super small, especially like compared to the other books, but I think it's really cute. I think it's adorable because like novellas are like, you know, short books in between the other books in the series, so it kind of is cute that they also made it mini. I think it's really cute. I did start this when me, Haley, and Sarah did our 24-hour readathon. It was literally like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I just was not in a fantasy mood at all, and I honestly don't have like a ton of recollection, so I think I'm just going to start this over this month. Next and last for kind of just like mood reading, I have The Ministry of Time. When I was with Sarah and Haley, we sat down and watched an Emily Henry interview, and she raved about this. Like she had it with her to tell them that this was one of her new favorite books. Those are all of the like mood reads. So moving on to another kind of classification within the books that I have on my radar, we have some classics, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Destiny's in her classics era. There is something that is a little bit scary about going into these. First of all, we have Little Women. This is the one that I feel like I am most excited for, maybe. It's just because Little Women, the movie, is one of my favorite movies of all time. I just love the story of Little Women. I actually have read Little Women before, but it was like for school when I was in like middle school or something, and I literally, just like I read The Great Gatsby in middle school, and middle school me was not remembering and having any retention with classics, let me tell you that. Next up, we have Jane Eyre, and this is one of my 24 books I wanted to read in 2024. And honestly, if I can read all of these, I will be almost like knocking out one of my reading goals for the year, which is to read 10 classics. I actually just bought a book, and I think it's called like Jane and Edward or something along those lines. And it's like a retelling of this book. So perfect timing for me to pick this up. Wuthering Heights. Again, with all of these, I know pretty much next to nothing about them. And we have Great Expectations. I thought, did somebody tell me that this was like kind of a little like gothic vibes? Not too sure again, but say it with me, folks. Excited. Animal Farm by George Orwell. I know a little bit about this just because I have read George Orwell's works before. This one, so short. Then we have Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Again, another, I just feel like, iconic book that I want to finally be able to read and understand. And I've also never watched a single Pride and Prejudice movie, so I'm excited to watch the Pride and Prejudice that literally everybody's in love with. I do have a few missing physical copies of books that I don't have, so Middle of the Night, this is Riley Sager's new release. I only have one other book, and I tried to read it last month, but I just wasn't into it. I do enjoy Riley Sager's newer books. I feel like his writing in his newer books are a lot better for me, and like going back into this one that I'm reading right now, it's not my absolute favorite writing wise, so I'm excited to try out his new books. And I feel like the concepts of his new books are really good and kind of unique. A novel love story. We know that The 7 Year Slip was one of my favorite books of last year. It is a 5-star read for me, so I'm very excited to see what Ashley Poston has up next up her sleeve. I also have Beautiful Boy. I have watched this movie multiple times and it makes me sob every single time. I'm very excited to pick this book up. We also have The Unabridged Journal of Sylvia Plath, which I have seen some things about and I want to dive into that. It's very intriguing to me. We also have The Glass Castle, Hamnet. I have this, but I just forgot that I have a physical copy of it. I could go grab it, but I'm gonna level with you guys. I'm not doing that. Hamnet's on the list as well as Rebecca, because this is a book that's been very intriguing to me. Rebecca is what influenced Tolerate It. And if you guys know me, Tolerate It is literally one of my favorite songs of all time. Those are the books that I don't have a physical copy of with me at this very moment. But moving on, we have Looking for Alaska. This is very nostalgic for me to pick up a John Green book and say that I'm reading it, because I cannot tell you the amount of times that I read and reread The Fault in Our Stars when I was in elementary school. You would think that I didn't know that any other book was published ever, the amount of times that I would reread that book. So it's very nostalgic for me to pick up a John Green book, but I never read Looking for Alaska. And again, these are all for videos, so I'm very excited to pick this one up. Next up, we have Lovely War. I saw this for the video that I'm filming, and I'm pretty sure Haley just talked about this one, and I haven't seen anybody else talk about it, and then it popped up on this thing that inspired my video. It's like a big book that I'm holding, but also the text is so big and it's floppy. Just describing the book for you guys of why I feel like it's very enjoyable to hold, so therefore the reading experience will be even more elevated. Next up, we have The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and one of you guys actually told me this is the only book that Sylvia Plath ever published. The rest of her works were poetry. This is one that's been on my list to read for a really long time. Next up, we have Cleopatra and Frankenstein. This is another one that I feel like I would be reading off of the list of books that have been anticipated for a while, but I've been scared to get into. Is this another one of my 24 books that I want to read in 2024? Oh, it's not. Why did I think it was? Oh, but actually, both The Bell Jar, Pride and Prejudice, and Hamnet are all ones that are on my 24 books to read for 2024, so we could possibly knock a few off those lists. Next up, we have Fight Club. This is another book that I've had this sitting on my shelf for probably like 2 years. You guys are actually sitting on like a coffee table that holds books, and it's where all of my classics, poetry book, and kind of more like literature type style books live, and this has been living there for probably 2 years, and this is why I should probably bring them out of that spot until I read them, because I forgot I had this book. Next up, we have Eileen. This author is actually pretty infamous. It's the same author of My Year of Rest and Relaxation. This book is going to be my first by them, but this is actually on my radar because, again, it's been sitting here probably for literally 2 years. It has a movie attached to it that Anne Hathaway's in. Little reward, I could watch that movie afterwards. And then we have Before the Coffee Gets Cold. Again, literally have had this book for 2 years and have never read it, but I have heard so many great things like for years about this book. And I love the concept of it because if I am remembering correctly, essentially it is this coffee shop and you sit down at this specific coffee table and you get like transported, or like you can have a conversation with somebody like from the past. I think it's something along those lines, but I've heard it's a very impactful story, and there's actually a few other installments of these books. And then this one is super nostalgic, and actually the last book, that's The Chronicles of Narnia. This is actually right above all 7 books. I may just stop at the first book. The Chronicles of Narnia literally raised me. I loved those movies so much growing up, and this will be very nostalgic for me to jump back into because I do have recollections of us having the Chronicles of Narnia books and reading them when I was younger. Those are all of the books that I have on my radar for this month. I understand that it's a lot, but like I said, these are all every single one of these are for video. Very, very excited to jump into every single one of these. Please let me know down below if you guys have read any of these books and your guys' opinions on them, and maybe some helpful tips for somebody getting into kind of like classics and literature for the first time, because I really, really would love to dive more deeply into this world of reading. Very excited for this next month of reading, and I hope you guys are excited to watch these videos as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you guys did, you guys know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff you guys know how to do. Thank you so much again to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video, and I will see you guys when I see you. Peace.